within 7 minutes of them on the phone, they can sign up and be on our schedule for services. So
Okay.
once a month, we'll focus on one pain point and we'll try to upsell them that. So
But do you guys do any type of digital marketing, either like through Google services?
when somebody a mile away from you says lawn service near me, you're going to pop up on the map and they're going to see you.
Do you give your customers the ability to text you?
Basically, what their point was is like it was triple the amount of open rate and read rate. That's the last service we're going to do on that property until we get paid.
Do you still send it to collections, even if it's a small?
You'll have to figure out for you like what's worth it. Well, in the beginning, every dollar is important. And I want to make sure that when I give you advice or the two big wisdom things, like I want to make sure like it's applicable like to what you
For
need.
sure.
But you need to be able to hold the standard properly. So what I failed to do in my beginning days because I lacked confidence and ability in, my leadership style is I would let things slide. Guy would show up late. Okay, I don't like confrontation, so I'm not going to say nothing to him. All right, so we have Tyler here. So Tyler is right down the road from us in Fort Worth. So Tyler, I guess give us a little snippet of like where you're at in business and what can I help you with?
Yeah, for sure. So I am fully startup mode. This will be my first season. Decided to do this kind of around Christmas time. I've been a consultant for several years. Was consulting a landscape company, commercial landscape company actually, and as a buddy of mine, and then just was praying and felt like I was supposed to do this, and so I've been transitioning over, and all the doors have opened up, and even like talking to you, which is a huge blessing. So thank you so much for speaking with me, and even finding you. I was like searching, how to do lawn care in like the DFW, and you popped up. So I've been following you ever since. So I've been
Awesome.
digesting all your content. But I have some questions if you want to get into that. If that's
Absolutely.
cool.
Absolutely.
So they're a little bit tactical, and if you don't feel like comfortable answering them, that's fine. But how do you? I noticed you've mentioned Copilot and things like that, and I was looking at that. You get 50 free customers for free. And do you use that to send out to the customer to obtain their like credit card information, to like first acquire their information at first, or do you have a separate form for that?
That's a good question. So we have like a submission form on our website. So if you go to militarylawncuts.com, it asks them for their like name, address, phone number, and all that stuff. And then from there, we'll reach out to them and get them pricing and send them a quote through Copilot. Now, when we
Okay.
send that, if they accept, it forces them to put a card on file.
Okay, awesome. And do they sign like an SOW, like a statement of work or any type of contract when they work with you at the beginning? And is that through a Copilot as well? Or
So you can set up contracts. We don't because I wanted a low barrier to entry for them to sign up. All I want is all we need is their credit card and approval, obviously. I don't want to have to send them like a contract. It just creates more friction. And I just wanted to easy as possible within 7 minutes of them on the phone, they can sign up and be on our schedule for services.
and then as far as like touch bases with your customers, I know you go out there probably weekly. I think that's what you guys do. But do you do any other type of touch bases, like emails or texts or anything like that, just to be front facing, forward facing with the client?
So we do for like holidays, for certain holidays. So obviously we're a military-owned company. So we'll
Yeah.
for Veterans Day, we will send out like a promotion for our veterans. The end of the year, we will like reach out and say, hey, like leave us a review. Tell us how we did this year. There's a couple other kind of touch points as far as like we do upsell our customers every month, mainly leads, but customers too if they don't have the service. So
Okay.
once a month, we'll focus on one pain point and we'll try to upsell them that. So like obviously right now is probably a good time for weed control because the grass is still dormant. And so we're sending those emails out probably in a month or two to be like for mowing and stuff.
Seen you guys push really hard the door hangers, the flyers, and things like that. Which I bought some and gonna go and knock that out. But do you guys do any type of digital marketing, either like through Google services or Facebook ads, or using side apps like Thumbtack or anything like that to generate any type of leads?
We don't do anything paid.
Okay.
I've tried Facebook ads, didn't really work. I tried Google ads for us, didn't really work.
Okay.
I never really took a course on how to properly do it, so that's probably lack of my training or effort per se. We've just found door hangers to work like well, and to me they're simple. It's just like
Okay.
put in like it's like hard work, instead of like I guess using your brain and like having to figure out like how to attract people through a Google ad. I will tell you, Google My Business is a really good like free way.
Okay.
So what's nice about that is if you can put your actual address in, it will read as a local company. So when somebody a mile away from you says lawn service near me, you're going to pop up on the map and they're going to see you. Driving Google reviews is a fantastic way, fantastic free way to end up in the top search engine.
Do you give your customers the ability to text you or do a texting platform with you along with the calling? And if so, which one do you find the most success with?
So when we were on Service Autopilot, we didn't do any texting at all. Okay, let me actually rephrase that. In the beginning, when I had just a cell phone as the company number, I did text.
Okay.
But then we evolved and got landlines and like a call center type phone service through voice over IP, and we went away with the texting. Now that we're on Copilot, you actually get, if you're on the enterprise user, a free phone number to text. So we now have texting, which is beneficial because we can text them for automations and when we're scheduled to come and stuff like that. And I think they use Twilio or something.
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know exactly, but we don't have to do anything except like pick the area code and then they do all the setup and it takes like a week or two and then you have a texting number.
Okay. Did you find there to be a lot of success with that? Do you think the user or the client enjoys that communication style over call, or does it matter?
I went to a conference, Landscape Summit, and they talked about this of the open rate. So for emails, like if you're blasting mass emails out, I mean 20-30% potentially like open rate and like viewing it and like comprehending of what the message is. And I think for texting it was like 70 or 80%. Now
Okay.
this is just a generic number and I'm throwing percentages out there, but they're basically what their point was is like it was triple the amount of open rate and read rate that like a customer would receive. Now we use it sparingly. We don't
Uh,
want to abuse it and we don't want to like text them every week when we're going to go and mow their lawn. So we use it very strategically and not try to overwhelm the customer with the text and stuff.
have you used it in marketing resources, like on a door hanger saying, "Hey, you can text me at this number," and or call?
We were going to this year, but the problem is we have two different numbers. And I
Okay.
didn't want to confuse the customer to say, you need to call this number, but you need to text this number. And then I just feel like there'd be some gray there. So we haven't. We
Okay.
also don't send out our upsell emails I say our upsells each month through text either. Again, I
Okay.
don't want to abuse that because I know when I send a text, they're reading it. So what we use it for is like when the customer doesn't pay their bill, I'm going to text them
Okay.
because I'm going to let them know that there's a late fee coming and, or they're going to collections after 2 months if they don't pay.
Oh, that's a perfect segue. I asked my wife, I'm like, "Hey, do you have any questions?" And she's like, "What about if they don't pay?"
Mhm.
And so, do you charge the customer before you go out for your route for the day, or do you charge after the fact?
We charge after the fact. We charge immediately after. There's some companies
Okay.
that will bill weekly or monthly. We do same day.
Okay.
And what that allows us to do is if the card doesn't go through, that's the last service we're going to do on that property until we get paid.
Now, with that customer that doesn't pay, hypothetically, do you reach out to them, of course, and try and like update the credit card or their debit card information? But after that, do you still send it to collections, even if it's a small service? If you're charging them for that mo or for that one time thing, or do you is that too much effort for your like man hours to put towards that effort to send them to collections?
That's a good question. There's a lot of people have mixed differences about this. Some people say it needs to be at least $600. To be honest, I mean, we're fully automating our collections process. So like our office doesn't even call anymore. Well, they do one time, but that's after like 50 days. But like the system's going to text and email the person all the way up until day 55. So like we don't have to
Okay.
do anything for 55 days really, and just be reactive about it. But in the old day, back in the day when we didn't have the automation set up, we'd have to call and we'd email them. It was just so much admin
Yeah,
time, right? So like there comes a point where it's like you'll have to figure out for you like what's worth it. Well, in the beginning, every dollar is important. So for you, it might make sense to actually pick up the phone and keep calling them each week and kind of like bugging them. I've showed up at customers' house, knocked on their door. But I'd say it's really up to you. What we do when we hand it off to collections is we literally just send them the invoice, we send them the email, phone number, and the address we have on file. They take it from there, and I wait until they contact me and say, "Hey, we finally got the money." And then they take, I think, like 35 or 40% of it. They pay us the other 60%. And so, yeah, it comes a point where when we just send it off, that's just it is what it is.
as far as like incoming calls for, new leads and things like that, are there higher times during the week, like a day and time of day that you see it to be the highest? Um, or is it kind of all over the place?
I think it's typically all over the place. I mean, Monday through Friday is definitely busy. Monday, we're catching up from the emails over the weekend. So Mondays are typically pretty busy. Tuesdays are pretty busy too. And I'd say like during the spring rush, like Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays are steady.
Okay.
Mondays and Tuesdays are probably your craziest days just because you're catching up from the weekend. But Wednesday through Friday, yeah, pretty steady.
I mean, I know you guys have great customer service, and you talk about that. What's your customer retention rate, or what do you find that to be in the industry with companies that have good customer service?
If you have good customer service, I would say anywhere from about 10 to maybe 25%
Okay.
churn is is probably pretty fair. Is a decent. Anything above probably 30%, there's probably definitely room for improvement. There's been times where we've had like a 70-80% churn, just because we were learning and hiring the right team members that are fit for the culture and everything. It's a process.
And what would you say is, talking to me, a new guy in the lawn industry, what would you say, like your top two things would say to me, like some offerings of wisdom from you to me at this stage in the game?
I get asked this a lot, and
Yeah,
it's a very vague question. So, like, do you have a category? Because I could go 1,000 different ways on that. And I want to make sure that when I give you advice or the two big wisdom things, like I want to make sure like it's applicable like to what you
for
need.
sure. My buddy has a large, I mean, middle size. They do about 3 million a year in commercial landscape. They do HOAs, doing the front yards and stuff like that. And he's like, hey, let me put in a good word to just do the backyards, you know? And and so how would you price that out, just doing the backyards, or target a community like that, um, from marketing to the sale, I guess?
Honestly, if I was in your shoes and I had zero experience and I'm still learning, I would go knock on a couple doors and say, "Can I mow your lawn for free?" And I would get a stopwatch and I would the minute when once you find somebody that's like, "Sure, go ahead." You just want to mow the backyard, start your timer, unload your equipment, mow the lawn, weed eat, edge, blow, load up all your equipment, get it back in the truck, stop the timer.
Okay.
That is the most valuable information right there because you'll be able to figure out how long a lawn like that is going to take you. And then from there, you can start to figure out, okay, if I was going to pay an employee, what would I pay him? 18, 15, $20 an hour, whatever that is. You at least need to triple whatever you're going to pay that person per
Okay.
hour, right? So like, let's just say the lawn took you an hour. Let's just say you would definitely, and you were going to pay somebody $20. Like what would be a reasonable wage? $20. Okay. I need to at least make $60 to even probably break even. I'd
Yeah.
want to see you at 4x, $80 an hour. So you
Yeah.
would know, hey, for this lawn, if it takes me 60 minutes, I need to charge $80. And that's basically how you would figure out
Okay.
that pricing.
And
Yeah.
how do you, I don't know if it was the last video you released. I've been combing through yours. I've been watching so much. But you were talking about when to, I guess, set up a crew, when, and doing 2-man crews to 1-man crews and doing 2-man crews during the summer. I always lean on the side of caution. I want to make sure that I've hired for service industries, residential service industries, and I know that people drop off pretty quickly. I did it for Houston for attics, so we dropped off really high. Um, but what would you say uh, when I should hire, my first person, and then should I, if I'm going into my first season, and let's hypothetically say I get enough lawns to hire someone, would you hire 2 people just to cover your butt, or would you just hire the one and I'm just the one covering my butt?
Yeah, so this is a good question. I think the hardest part in business is when you have one truck and two guys. Because when that one guy doesn't show up, it's like, I mean, and if he doesn't show up for 2 or 3 days, there's no way the one guy's going to have to pick up the slack. Now, what you'll need to do is create some kind of buffer in your schedule. So, for example, I'll just say for you, let's just say you could mow 10 lawns a day, residential. And so most people are like, oh, I'm going to hire somebody and we're going to do 20 lawns a day.
Yeah.
No, don't do that. So number one, there's gonna be waste with two people anyway. So you're not gonna be able to double it. You'd be lucky to get 75% of what you could do out of the other person. So like even if you could get like 7 or 8 lawns out of them with you, that would be 18 a day. That would still be good. I am very conservative and just be like, I would go maybe like do like 15, right?
Okay.
That's, if he doesn't show up, you could probably do 15 that day. It's going to be a long day, but you could probably push through and just knock them out. So you just want to be very careful when you do start to hire employees that you have room for error. And that's not going to change. Even us at 7 or 8 employees, we always are still booking with room for error because one person's sick, somebody's on vacation, somebody doesn't feel good, somebody got injured, somebody's parents are coming into town and like, so you never want to book the schedule fully to 100%. You always want to leave room for error and maybe booking it like 70% full is good. And guess what? If he shows up every day, Monday through Thursday, and he shows up on Friday too, hey man, we're gonna have a half day today. Enjoy
Yeah.
enjoy the day off. And I'm sure he'll appreciate that too.
And
I think you had another part to that question. So I answered the first question of like, oh, when do you hire? When you get full, right? So like if your capacity is 10 lawns a day, once you get 10 lawns a day, 5 days a week, and then you start getting more than that, where you got to work on Saturday for a half day, then you're like, okay, I probably need some at least a part-time help or something,
yeah,
to fill the schedule in.
do you find that you can find good part-time help?
Oh, that was the other thing. Yes, but you need to be able to hold the standard properly. So what
Yeah.
I failed to do in my beginning days because I lacked confidence and ability in, my leadership style is I would let things slide. Guy would show up late. Okay, I don't like confrontation, so I'm not going to say nothing to him. And then it like over time it got worse and worse and worse until like it's the point where I'm like kind of upset at the dude, like, and he's like, well, and it was just so you basically be kind but stern. Like have your standards in place. Hey, we get here on time or you don't work here. You know what I mean? Like this is the line that we hold and we need our guys here. And so if he shows up, even if it's like I'm 2 minutes late, hey, it's 8:02. Like, and really just being like, for me, it was a little hard because I don't like confrontation. But
Yeah.
I've learned as my leadership has grown that like I'm doing them a disservice if I don't step up and say something. And me as a leader, I want what's best for them. So I need to make sure that, they're upholding the standards for themselves. And so I think if you do that and you really hold that initially and don't be afraid to like fire them if in the first week, there's a
Yeah.
lot of issues, just setting the tone and requiring what you're asking of.
And I appreciate you. I've been watching you how you've built your systems and processes and how that's key. And I would agree with that. So I think it's cool that you've built that out. You guys do W-2, correct?
Yes.
Uh, and why did you choose that over the like 1099 contractors?
I think it is mainly, I mean, for obviously like control.
Yeah.
I like being in control of the of the team, of the hours, of the schedules. If I do 1099s, I mean, they're technically another person that owns their own business, and I'm just sending them work, right? And because they're supposed to not. I mean, I don't know the logistical standpoint of it of where like if they use your equipment, like it starts getting gray. It gets that gray area, like if they're using your equipment or they're using their equipment, do they have their own insurance and all that stuff? And I just wanted to, you know, build a good team and a culture around us. So doing it in-house, I think, is for us the right way to do it, you know, to build a long-term sustainable business.
Yeah. And what do you what's like the overhead amount increase when you go to W-2, right? Because I know that you're paying them their wage, right? But the insurance and what would that percentage be, I guess? You're like, hey, you need to make sure that you're making it's not really about like numbers, but like you need to have 20% room to go into a W-2 employee versus a 1099, right? Because there's
I,
different things that are required for each one.
yeah, I could be wrong on this. I think it's at least like 25%. Like in my mind, if I'm paying them $20, they're probably costing me like $28.
Oh yeah.
Easy. You know, with all of the extra stuff. Easy. Maybe even $30. That's why I say another like the other point of a good rule of thumb, like if you're paying them 20, you need to be charging the customer 4x that. Because that's really what you're doing. You're renting your employee out to a customer. Sure, we're mowing lawns. It could be cleaning carpets. It could be power washing or pressure washing. It could be any of that stuff. Like we're just selling labor, right? Or even detailing a car. Like, okay, this car detail takes 1 hour. Okay, I'm gonna pay an employee $20 for that hour. I need to charge the customer 80 or $100, right? Like we're basically selling time. And so, you know, you're basically renting your employees out for 7 or 8 hours a day to your customers as they mow and maintenance their lawn, and you know we it's based off of the time. So that's why I said like you'll be pretty good if you just 4x what you're going to pay them, and that'll typically cover all of those extra costs and stuff.
And then as far as like the route density and from going to startup to trying to create cash flow, do you and I don't know how you started, but would you prioritize route density over cash flow at the beginning because of what it might do for you later on, or would you prioritize cash flow and and go that route?
When you say cash flow, you mean like profit?
Yeah, or sales coming in, right? Yeah, just
Mhm.
money coming in.
That's a good question. So obviously rolling solo right now, you're going to be probably priced more competitive than us because we have a shop to pay for. I've got employees to pay for. I've got insurance. I've got, you know, all this stuff, right? Whereas you're probably just operating out of your home
Yep.
and maybe get a storage unit in the next year or two to put your stuff, right? Like you don't have a ton of overhead. You don't have to pay for an office because you're just living at your house, you know. So there is something to be said to being priced competitively in the beginning, but as you start to gain employees and team members, it's important that you know the numbers of your business and that you're paying a fair wage, that you can retain good talent while also making a decent profit. So, I mean, when we first started, dude, we were doing $19 lawn cuts. I still remember the flyer.
That's
And
intense.
so that was way back in the day. Now, we don't do anything close to that these days. But I think there's something to be said in the beginning of just winning the job. Even if you're $5 less, just win the job, get the confidence that you can get a handful of customers, be there when you say you're going to be there, be consistent, let it grow, word of mouth, get a Google My Business, have them leave a review after a few weeks of you doing their lawn because you've been taking care of them. And like there's something to be said about that, you know, and because then that build gives you the confidence, like, hey, this is working, right? Now I just need to fine tune the machine a little bit, raise
Yeah.
prices a little bit, figure out how I get an employee in here to do the work so I don't have to be the one always doing it, you know, stuff like that.
In the beginning, did you prioritize distance to hey, we might go take a you guys might go down to Flower Mountain, right? Like 25, 30 minutes away to take a job. over, just staying in your localized area? Or
I
did
would
you,
be because I know your market. It's like our market up here. There's homes everywhere.
dude, it's intense.
I don't think you need to drop. I think you drop a pin and you circle a 5 mile radius. There's a website. If you go to 5 mile radius on Google or whatever, and just Google that, you'll be able to drop a pin. Those are
Okay.
your neighborhoods. And when you're doing flyers, I would do your neighborhood and the one right across the street.
Okay.
And that right there is probably 3,000 homes.
Yeah.
And by the time it takes you to hand out 3,000, I mean, that's going to be probably a couple of weeks. So there's no sense in having to drive 25 minutes, even in the first year, unless you have like a boatload of money that you just want to pour into like EDDM flyers and like gain all this market share. But in the beginning, when you're just like making it work and getting scrappy with it, I would drop the pin and even a 3 mile radius. I guarantee you, if you do market research and you dropped a pin, figure out how many homes are in 3,000 or I mean, 3 miles.
Yeah.
I would be willing to bet there's 20,000 homes. From that, how many are going to need lawn care? A lot of them because we're in 100-degree Texas weather, right? People don't
Yeah.
mow their lawns in the summer and they hire guys like you and I. And so, I mean, even just a little percentage of that, I mean, you'll have 20, 30 customers. So there's a lot of business. There's no sense in having to drive out. I
Okay.
wouldn't recommend like driving a lot. Yeah, that'll eat your profits up like that, sitting in
Yeah.
traffic, especially when you hire a helper. There's a couple times that were very pivotal moments in our success as we grew. And I'll tell you, the first one was when we only accepted credit cards. We used to take checks, we used to take cash, we used to take Venmo, Zelle, all that stuff. And I think from day one, if you just establish yourself like, hey, we only take cards on file, I think that you will do it right. And I understand like in the beginning, it's like you just want your funnels like this, right? You're trying to take everything. But if you focus on the customers that are like willing to put the card on file, there's a lot of them. Probably 95% of customers will not even bat an eye. They'll put a card on file.
Yeah.
It'll make your life a lot easier, and I think you'll scale quicker instead of
Okay.
having to do it after a year or two when you have like half your customers paying you. And just the time. And instead of getting bogged down by getting the check underneath the mat or knocking on the door because they never left cash and they're not, and you're always chasing money, get the card on file with Copilot. They allow you to do that. You can force it. And then you don't have to be chasing a lot of money now. And you can focus that time on putting more door hangers out and really focusing on sales, you know.
Okay. Cool. That's perfect. Yeah.
The other thing that I'd recommend is to, when you do credit card on file only, to pass the processing fees off to the customer. So in Copilot, there's a in the underneath the settings, you can go in there and it's like 2.9% per transaction, plus 30 cents. Pass those on to the customers. And then when you're sending your estimate, you just put it in like fine print at the bottom. Hey, there's sales tax that gets included plus authorization fee that goes, that's additional.
Yeah.
And that every year has saves us, in fact, $22,000 it saved us last year. Those I think are good foundational things to build off of at the beginning.